Hello, and welcome to I Hate Talking, a podcast about talking, including etymology, frustrating topics, current events, and other random subjects. I'm Adam.
And I'm Steph. We are married, and we invite you into these discussions with us as we talk about the good and the bad of talking.
We hope you enjoy today's episode. Welcome to episode 28 of I Hate Talking.
Hi, everyone.
So what are we talking about today?
I have no idea.
I don't have any idea either. Today's word or phrase of the episode is the word Spartan.
Nice. Like the movie or like the competition?
So it is a movie. It is a competition, obstacle course racing. It also can be just related to Sparta in ancient Greece, so of or relating to that particular region. It can also mean as an adjective showing the indifference to comfort or luxury traditionally associated with ancient Sparta. So you're not going to necessarily be fulfilling your life's desires or pleasures, but you are going to be in some form or fashion indifferent to receiving comfort, and probably has some relationship to stoicism and things of that nature. So those are some things that may come to mind when you hear the word Spartan.
Awesome. I didn't realize that about the meaning of being indifferent to luxuries. What was it again? What did it say?
Showing the indifference to comfort or luxury.
So can you actually use that in sentences then? Because I am not a Spartan because I do like luxury and comfort. I am not indifferent to it.
Right. And I think that's the key, is that it's not that like stoicism or maybe some other things where you are actually rejecting comfort. Spartan is just simply indifferent to comfort or luxury. So if you have comfort or luxury, that's okay. But that if you don't have comfort or luxury, that's okay too. So let's see if we can find an example in a sentence, or if I can think of something in a way to use it in a sentence in terms of that particular definition.
Yeah, because when I heard it in phrases, like on TV, the phrase I am Spartan comes to mind. And maybe I'm mistaken in that origin of it. But when I think of that, I think of victorious, strong, no one's going to stop me. But that would be very different from that meaning you were just read.
Yeah, and that also is part of the definition that is available here on the dictionary.com. The previous dictionary definition that I was reading was the Oxford Dictionary that we've been referencing a lot in previous episodes. But according to dictionary.com, which I don't really trust dictionary.com all that much, but it does at least give some definitions of words that are in the modern lexicon in perhaps ways people use them, maybe not as precisely as the Oxford Dictionary would have them. But it does say, I'm getting an ad on dictionary.com, so there you go.
Got to pay the bills.
It says that it's suggestive of the ancient Spartans, sternly disciplined, rigorously simple, frugal or austere, brave, undaunted. So some of that type of connotation with victorious that you were describing.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on to the Cambridge Dictionary, it does have a definition that is simple and severe with no comfort. They do use it in a example sentence that says, quote, they lead a Spartan life with very few comforts and no luxuries.
Okay.
So the reason that we're talking about Spartan is because many of us in our family have just taken part in a Spartan race, which is that obstacle course racing series that was created, I guess, probably a few decades ago at this point, where there are obstacles and off-road racing that you're doing on foot. So sort of that type of running race known as a Spartan race.
Yeah, it was really fun. I was the cheerleader and making sure that everybody was in their spots because we had multiple different times of starting times. So I was just hanging back with everyone in our family that wasn't. But it was so fun watching y'all. The kids and I got to watch you do quite a few of the really difficult challenges, and that was great. I had a friend ask me about it afterwards, and I was telling her about it, how many miles you ran and obstacles. And because at first she's like, this is really fun. I should do this with you next year. And I told her about it, and she's like, oh, actually, never mind. Because it is intense. It is not a luxury, and it's not easy at all. So I'm really proud of you for doing it.
Indeed, and it has changed over the last few years that I've done them. There have been some years that it was easier or harder. This particular year, it actually was on the harder side, a more difficult side for whatever reason. And I did not really expect it to be harder because it was a dry course. So, these races are typically held rain or shine. Obviously, if there's any super severe weather, lightning or tornadoes or whatnot, they will suspend racing. But if it's just raining or if the course is wet, that will proceed as planned. So typically when it's a dry course, you'll have a faster time. But that was still quite challenging. And that was the outlook from many of the people that I saw on social media afterwards and that I heard talking about it at the actual venue, that it was quite a difficult course this year.
Yeah, and not trying to exaggerate, today is 20 degrees cooler than it was on that day just a couple days ago. So it was excessively hot. And so I felt like that was what I was constantly doing, was having everyone drink water and stuff because it was so hot and it was just draining everyone, I feel like.
Yes, it certainly was hot, and it was actually a spike in temperature too. So not only is it cooler today, but it was also cooler leading up to this particular event. So perhaps people were used to the cooler weather, including myself, and this particular hot day made it especially challenging.
Mm-hmm. One of them, we were talking about the obstacles. So you had your race first, and then a group of our children had their race, and then the next group had theirs. The kids are based on age groups. Obviously, the older kids would have more mileage to run and more obstacles to do, and then the younger kids have less. When we were waiting for their races to start, we kind of found a shaded spot, which was super helpful because it was so hot. And the kids were drawing and drinking water, and it was a perfect spot because we got to watch you go underneath the barbed wire. And so that was really exciting to cheer you on. And then the spot we had right aside it, that was a little bit later on in obstacles, but you kind of loop around and go back. So we got to see this next obstacle too. And I was terrified watching you. It's called the slick wall. And you want to explain what it is?
Yep. So the slip wall actually is
okay.
the actual name of the particular obstacle in this case. But yes, it's typically it's immediately after some sort of water obstacle. I don't think I've ever seen it where it's not been after a water obstacle, since that's sort of the point on how it is made to be slippery, aka the slip wall. So it's immediately after rolling mud and dunk wall. So where you're actually submerging yourself underwater to go underneath a wall. So you're completely soaking wet, and then you have to climb this 45, I think maybe even a little bit steeper, maybe 50 or 55 degree angle metal wall using a rope and pulling yourself up this wall that's probably 20 feet tall from ground to the angled tip of the particular obstacle.
Yeah. First, we got to see you, like I said, when you were about to do that. So you called to us. We came over to the side and cheered you on. And I went to kiss you, and then I was like, oh, wait, you're really gross looking. Because you just came out of the water, and we're just mud. And so I just gave you a high five. Sorry about that.
Yep, and I just did some offline research. I guess it is the adrenaline of the race. It's nowhere near 20 feet tall. It's actually only 8 feet tall. But it seems a lot bigger when you're right there doing it.
Right. Well, yes. And in your defense, what I was saying earlier, that I was terrified watching you do it with our kids standing there cheering you on. They were so proud, and I'm glad we got to watch you do it. The entire time I was praying, though, because while we were there earlier waiting for you to come around, we saw lots of people, quite a few people fall, and it wasn't like easy falls. I mean, it wasn't like medics were needed, but they were hitting their heads. They were really getting the wind knocked out of them. So I was just praying that you would be safe and that our kids would not see you get majorly injured.
Indeed. And this just goes to show you that you can't believe everything you hear on a podcast, nor accept the very first AI overview result on Google, because I actually did a little bit more research. And according to the official Spartan Race subreddit, it is 15 feet tall from the tip to the ground.
Okay, so what? We went 21, 8, now we're at 15.
15. We're going with 15 as the final number.
Okay. No more research on it. Take our word for it. 15 feet.
There you go. And then I guess you were also quite surprised at how quickly I arrived from the barbed wire crawl to the slip wall and finish line.
Right, yeah. So like I said, where we were stationed, how it was set up, every year it's different. Every race is different, I guess. But this year, how they had it set up, we watched you and we knew you'd loop around and come back. And that was like the second to last obstacle before the finish line. Seeing how much longer you had, I expected not to see you for another half hour or so. And that's why I said, I'm glad you called to us because we would have missed you. I was not watching. And so I was really like, wow, that's amazing. Like, he made crazy time. How in the world did you run that many miles in like 15 minutes? So I was encouraging, like praising you, like, wow, that's amazing. And then you let me know what happened.
Yep. So this was actually my 13th Spartan race that I've done. My very first one being back in 2016, and have done a number over, obviously, the past few years, in some years doing 2 or 3. And this was my very first DNF. Did not finish. And that is because I went from the barbed wire crawl immediately to the spear throw and cut off the dog leg that did contain some additional distance and some additional obstacles. And the reason for that was so that I could make it to the start of the kids' race. Decided to accept that loss and have my very first DNF out of my 13 races. So 12 out of 13 completed. And this was the very first one that I did not finish, but I think had good reason to do so.
Yeah, I'm so thankful for that and so proud of you because you could have done it. The reason you didn't finish also was we knew that it was cutting it close on how long it would take you usually to complete a race, but it was the only time slots for you to sign up and the kids. So we knew it would be cutting it close. And then there was a whole bunch of just obstacles, or I don't know if it's a pun or not, but like things that made it difficult. Like the parking lot took over an hour to get into, which is not normal. Then you had a really long wait to get into the facility. So you started late because of the setup of, I guess, the influx of people, right? Everyone showing up at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. To your point, that does not usually happen, but this was a actually very busy event. So I'm not sure if they were doing extra advertising or whatever the case may be that resulted in so many people signing up. It also was harder to get a earlier time slot, as you mentioned. So I was starting later than normal in order to have enough time to finish my race and have some buffer time before the kids' race. And then on top of that, yes, all the traffic and registration, as well as just flow of traffic on the race course itself. Typically that is not an issue, but for whatever reason, there was just a lot of people there. And I think just became exacerbated by the fact that people were running late, and then there were different wave sizes, and that just messed up the flow from there. That caused a lot of those delays as well.
Right. So you ended up having to start late. Yeah, you would not have had time to finish the race before our older kids. But they loved racing with you. Like, I think it's a bummer you did not get the medal. So I understand that's kind of a disappointment. And sadness for you possibly, but the kids knew you showed up. And more importantly than getting your 13th medal is showing that the kids matter. And having those memories, they're going to remember forever that their dad raced with them.
That is true. And to be fair, I don't think I do it explicitly for the medal or the accomplishment of necessarily finishing an entire course, but just for the experience itself and overcoming some of these obstacles and having a challenge that in some form or fashion keeps me relatively fit so that I can be in Spartan shape at all times and be prepared for overcoming these type of physical challenges and things of that nature.
So is it fun for you, or is it to say you can do it?
It's to make sure that I stay in such a shape that I can do it. So not necessarily the knowledge that I can do it, but the actual ability that I can do it, as well as to some degree, yes, the accomplishment of it. And there's actually quite a bit of camaraderie within the Spartan community as well. So it's not just purely competitive in nature where racers are racing against each other, but within the open heats especially, there's a lot of camaraderie in terms of people helping one another. So it is have a sense of community as well.
It is really cool to watch people helping each other up to do obstacles or cheering each other on. And I do love that they're not looking at each other as competitors, but everyone is wanting each other to finish and do well.
Exactly. And I also was a bit unprepared for this particular race because just the previous year, they had removed all burpees as penalties. So in the olden days and from when I started racing in 2016, the penalty for a failed obstacle was 30 burpees. So if you were unable to complete whatever the particular obstacle was, monkey bars or a rope climb or things of that nature, then you were required to do 30 burpees. And last year, and they've started phasing this out a little bit over the last few years, but last year was the very first race that they had 0 burpees. So essentially what would happen is that if you failed an obstacle, you would be required to run a small penalty loop. So it was not necessarily a lot of extra physical exertion. It was just more running. And that is what I expected to encounter this year as well. So I knew that there were going to be obstacles that I would most likely fail just because of just not being able to do some of those things. And I was prepared to run the penalty loop, but they actually have brought back burpees this year.
Oh, no, really? I didn't even know that.
And I'm actually very happy about that fact. Mm-hmm. I think that the penalty loops were perhaps a bit more measurable and consistent in terms of it being like a competitive sport. But again, that's not necessarily the reason that I'm doing it. So actually having the burpees added some additional things to consider and try to attempt the obstacles a bit more with intent to actually achieve doing the obstacle and rather than doing those burpees. So I'm very happy that the burpees are back, actually.
Awesome. So it is 30 burpees. Is that the same?
30 burpees is the requirement. I think they did have a few obstacles. I think these are typically the ones that are most often failed that did have penalty loops. So it was a mix of penalty loops and burpees this year. However, they actually had burpee zones at all the obstacles. So in the event that you could not complete the obstacle, for some of them they did have the penalty loop, but you still had the option to do burpees if you wanted to. So that was interesting as well.
Okay, that's cool. And then a really cool thing this year for the first time was our older boys were able to help our younger boys. And that was really fun. I mean, they ended up doing theirs and then the little boys also. That just was so sweet to watch them help them through the mud or help them with the spear throw and things like that. was really cool because I know that it meant so much to them that you ran with them, and you did run with all of them. So you ran your race, most of it, and then you ran the big boys, and then you ran the little boys as well.
Exactly. And at least 2 of the races there were shoe failures. So I don't even know if you knew all these stories, but
No, for you?
For me and for the little kids as well. So on the little kids race, they had their version of rolling mud where they'll go through some muddy water or just some mud in general as they're going up and down some embankments. And the 2 little ones lost both of their shoes in that first round of rolling mud because the mud got sticky and they sank down into the mud and withdrew their feet from the mud without their shoes on.
Oh, no. So did you have to go dig out their shoes?
So I did. So to your point, the older boys did help them, and they kept going without their shoes.
Oh, no. They ran without shoes.
While I climbed down into the mud pit and retrieved their shoes. And it actually was quite sticky, and I almost lost a shoe as well, and actually found it easier to take my foot out of my shoe and then dig my shoe out. So that happened, and was able to retrieve all the shoes and get the kids to put their shoes back on, but they had already advanced a little way up the course. So
wow,
that was taken care of, but they were able to finish the course with all their shoes intact. And then my shoe problem was interesting. Probably about halfway through, I felt a rock rubbing against the left side of my heel and kept going for a little bit, but decided at some point that this was going to become a problem and would have to take care of this and get the rock out. So I removed my shoe, figured that I would just grab the rock out of the shoe and throw it away and then put my shoe back on and move on with the course. But what I actually found when I took my shoe off, the rock had been in between the outer wall of the shoe and the lining.
Oh, no. I know what you mean. Because you can't get it out easily, right?
No, it was very difficult to get out. So I figured that it would maybe had gotten in there from like maybe where some stitching had gotten loose or whatever the case may be. So I did reach in and was able to actually work around some of the lining, and the rock was even inside the lining of the lining.
Oh, wow.
So I have no idea how it got there. It probably was from a previous race because these have been the shoes that I've worn for the last few races. And what I had to do is actually rip the stitching and the insulation and to remove this rock. Should have probably held onto the rock because it probably was maybe even from a different state that I had done a course perhaps. But I just tossed it to the side and resumed racing.
Are your shoes okay? Do you have to get new racing shoes now?
They are probably on their last legs, probably have maybe another race in them, but that would probably be about it, I think.
So also watching a bunch of different competitors, it's really cool. Like we're talking about the camaraderie and all. A lot of people, like sometimes you'll see like people in uniforms or costumes. Do you ever see people run shoeless? I feel like that would be really challenging, but a good obstacle to do.
I have seen people run shoeless because they have lost their shoes in the mud. Those have been in some of the rainier courses where it actually is muddy and they might have lost a shoe along the way somewhere. So I have seen that. That was they were running shoeless, not by choice, but just out of necessity. I have seen people wear like those socks or whatever that are like the barefoot socks that still give some protection to your feet, but are not quite the same as a full shoe. And I do not believe I've seen anybody run like barefoot as a particular thing that they did by choice.
Okay. Man, I hate shoes. I would probably rather run barefoot. Another cool thing that I didn't see this year, did you see the team that helps the individual in the wheelchair?
Did not see that this year. It is possible that they were racing on the other day of the weekend. There's also a lot of different teams based in the area that we were visiting that were affected by Hurricane Helene. So that may have also played a part in some of these particular teams' abilities to get to the venue and actually do the race. So that may have had something to do with it. But yes, to your point, there are often veterans or just people that have particular physical disabilities or challenges that will race with a team and be in a wheelchair or need some sort of assistance from the rest of their team members in order to do these obstacles. So I've seen them, lift up these people over 8-foot walls and, through various obstacles so that they can complete the challenge as well.
Yeah, it's really amazing. I've seen them, lift them in their wheelchairs even and all, or however they need help through these things. And I think it's beautiful, and it's also an awesome challenge because, God forbid, if there were ever any major problems and you do have to get out, especially even like with Hurricane Helene that just happened and everything, sometimes you do have to physically carry people or help people. And so showing that they're there to support everyone and their friends, even if they physically can't do it themselves, they're there to help them and will take care of them.
Exactly. And I think that is somewhat of the same thing that I have in mind in just terms of physical preparedness, as well as camaraderie, right? Both of those things in mind as critical things for preparedness as well.
But yeah, I am so impressed that you're able to do that and that you want to do it. I feel very safe around you because then you can help me through all that if we ever need to. But again, I think overall from the weekend, I'm most proud of you for stepping back and saying, I want to do this, but I know my children want me. And being willing to put, I don't know, how would you say? It's not ego, because it's not like you had ego, but like reevaluating your goals and saying, I want to complete the challenge, but I also want to be with my children.
Precisely. So, and hopefully Mr. Joe DeSena will understand. That is the creator of Spartan Race. I think perhaps he would. I think he has kids as well, so perhaps he would be understanding to that fact.
Right, and you didn't even get your medal. I don't think they gave it. Did you get a banana or anything? I know the little kids did. I saw you eating theirs. So did you not even get any of that then, right?
So I did get all that stuff at the end of the course. Typically there will be that rolling mud and dunk wall, slip wall, and then a fire jump, and then the finish line. I was offered a medal because to their perspective, I had just finished the race, which I had declined, and then they offered it again, and I declined again. But I did get the T-shirt and the refueling stuff, so the drink and the banana and all that at the end as well.
Oh, okay. But yeah, so that's awesome. And I think it's amazing to watch y'all, and it's so exciting. And it's just so cool afterwards to hear your stories or the kids' stories and just seeing on your faces that relief of like, I did this. And so I liked asking everyone, like, what was the most challenging obstacle and what was the funnest obstacle? They all admitted, all the boys said the mud was the most challenging. And then they all had different, most fun obstacles.
Exactly. So we'll put a link to Spartan Race in the description, along with maybe some descriptions of the various obstacles if you're interested in learning more. And if you are interested in hearing even more detailed experiences about particular race experiences from either this race or even previous races, let us know in the comments or send us an email or a text message. And don't forget to like or subscribe to this particular podcast.
Yeah, sounds great.
So from your friends at I Hate Talking, until next time, remember, it is only through talking that we begin the journey to understanding.